There's a movie that came out in the summer of 1992 that almost didn't get made the way you remember it. The nun who sang Motown. The mobster who couldn't shoot a woman in a habit. The choir that went from tone-deaf to show-stopping in 90 minutes. You've seen Sister Act. You probably own the VHS. But what went on behind those convent walls is a completely different kind of story. One involving a terrified Hollywood star, a secret script doctor who played Princess Leia, a furious Whoopi Goldberg who refused to show up for her own press tour, and a power move so calculated it would make a Vegas bookmaker sit down and take notes. This is the version nobody put on the back of the box. The woman who said no, and spent years regretting it. Before Whoopi Goldberg ever touched a habit, Sister Act was written for someone else entirely. Back in 1987, screenwriter Paul Rudnick wrote the lead role with one specific actress in mind. He named the character Terry Van Cardia and shaped every joke, every beat, every sequin-covered moment around Bette Midler. Disney loved it. Jeffrey Katzenberg called her, then called again and again. Each time, Midler had the same answer. Her fans didn't want to see her in a wimple, the white cloth piece that frames a nun's face inside her habit. Bette Midler was genuinely afraid that headwear was going to tank her career, so she passed. Repeatedly, firmly. Disney panicked. What followed was one of the more frantic casting searches in early 90s Hollywood. Madonna's name came up. Cher was considered. Tracy Ullman was in the conversation. The script kept getting rewritten to fit whoever was currently being courted, until it stopped feeling like development and started feeling like a casting roulette wheel nobody could stop. Then Whoopi Goldberg stepped in, put on the habit, and made it look easy. Years later, Midler said it publicly. She blew it. Whoopi wore it all the way to the bank, and she was perfect for it. That's the thing about passing on a project because you're scared of a costume. The costume doesn't care. It just finds somebody else and makes them a star. The script they were still writing while the cameras rolled. When filming started, the script wasn't finished. Not almost finished. Still being actively written while people were already on set in costume. Disney had given the writers 2 weeks to reconceive the entire movie around a different performer. 2 weeks. Shockingly, that wasn't enough. But the studio had a release date they weren't moving, so production started anyway. Director Emil Ardolino didn't sugarcoat it later. It's problematic to be shooting out of order and then suddenly come to a scene that hasn't been written yet. Multiple writers were brought in to tag team rewrites during production. Pages passed back and forth while cameras were rolling on other scenes. It was a comedy emergency room. And when the script really started wobbling, Whoopi didn't wait for the studio to sort it out. She called Carrie Fisher. Fisher came in as an uncredited script doctor. Her name appears nowhere in the credits, which is exactly how these arrangements work. She wasn't there to tweak a few jokes. She was there to make Dolores Van Cardia sound like a real person, specifically like Whoopi Goldberg, rather than a character written for someone else 3 rewrites ago. She also became an unofficial diplomat when tensions flared between the production and Disney leadership. Meanwhile, original writer Paul Rudnick watched things drift so far from what he'd written that he asked to be credited under a pseudonym. The name on screen was Joseph Howard. When a screenwriter voluntarily hides behind a fake name on his own movie, that tells you everything about the distance between the original script and what ended up on film. What's remarkable is that none of it shows. Watch Sister Act today, and it feels like a movie that always knew what it was doing. The chaos is invisible, which is either a tribute to everyone who fought through it, or proof that a good enough cast can cover an extraordinary amount of disorder. The real nun who gave up Hollywood for a monastery. Before Sister Act was a screenplay, there was a woman named Dolores Hart. In 1957, she gave Elvis Presley his first on-screen kiss in Loving You. By 1960, she was a breakout star of Where the Boys Are, and Hollywood was calling her the next Grace Kelly. Then in 1963, at 24 years old, she walked away from all of it and entered a cloistered Benedictine monastery in Connecticut. She became a nun. She stayed. Screenwriter Paul Rudnick traveled to the Abbey of Regina Laudis to meet her. He stayed 2 days, absorbed the rhythms of the place, and never actually got the meeting with Mother Dolores. But the trip shaped the DNA of Sister Act, a glamorous performer trading spotlights for something completely opposite. Dolores Van Cardia does it to dodge bullets rather than find spiritual peace, But the contrast at the center of the story has a real-world echo. Decades later, when Victoria Clark was preparing to play Mother Superior in the Broadway musical, she finally had the meeting Rudnick never did. Mother Dolores gave her one note: don't make her pious. God wants our humanity, not our divinity. To this day, Mother Dolores Hart remains the only nun who holds a voting membership in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Gambling nuns, a porno channel, and a $100 bet. Not everything from the Sister Act shoot was chaotic in a bad way. Some of it was chaotic in the way that only a film shoot in a Reno casino can be. Kathy Najimy found Sister Mary Patrick by watching Mary Hart on Entertainment Tonight. She saw Hart deliver a compliment on air with such aggressive cheerfulness that she immediately thought, that's my nun. Once you know that, Mary Patrick makes perfect sense. Someone for whom everything is genuinely the most exciting thing that has ever happened. Choir rehearsal is thrilling. Mass is thrilling. She's the person you know who is inexplicably delighted by everything, and you've given up trying to decide if she's inspiring or exhausting. During the Reno casino shoot, Najimy and Wendy McKenna would sit at the blackjack table between shots in full costume. Habits on, drinks in front of them, McKenna apparently smoking, playing cards like two nuns who had decided what happens in Reno stays in Reno. And then there's the hotel room story. Before a room service order arrived, Najimy convinced McKenna to sit on the bed staring at the television, which was tuned to an adult channel, so the waiter would walk in and find two nuns watching pornography. It went exactly as planned. McKenna lost a $100 bet because she couldn't keep a straight face. Imagine working a hotel shift in Reno and walking into that room. That's not a vacation memory. That's something you're still describing at Christmas dinner 30 years later. The star who refused to promote her own movie. And won, anyway. By the time production wrapped, Whoopi Goldberg's relationship with Disney was genuinely broken. The constant rewrites, the chaos, the feeling that the studio never trusted the people making the movie. It had accumulated into something she wasn't willing to move past. When Sister Act hit theaters in summer 1992, she refused to promote it. No interviews, no press junkets, no talk show appearances. Total silence. Disney was launching a summer comedy against Batman Returns, Lethal Weapon 3, and Patriot Games, and their star was at home. Then the movie exploded anyway. Word of mouth did what the press tour couldn't. The soundtrack spent 54 weeks on the Billboard 200 and went gold. Sister Act pulled in $139 million domestically and $231 million worldwide against a $31 million budget. In a summer stacked with action sequels and superhero money, a movie about a lounge singer hiding in a choir just strolled in and refused to lose. The uncomfortable truth the success revealed. The Hollywood promotional machine is less essential than the industry would like to believe. Or maybe it just confirmed something simpler. When Whoopi Goldberg is funny, you don't need a press tour. The sequel negotiation that got a movie made in South Africa. When Disney came back for a sequel, they needed Goldberg badly enough to pay for it. The offer landed somewhere between $7 and $12 million, at a moment when most leading actresses were clearing $2 or $3 million per picture if they were lucky. Tom Cruise had made $12.5 million for A Few Good Men that same year. Whoopi was playing in his league. She didn't just cash the check. For years, Goldberg had been trying to get a film called Sarafina released in the United States. A musical drama about South African students during the 1976 Soweto uprising. She was reportedly the first Black American actress to film a project in South Africa. No Hollywood studio would touch it. Too heavy. Too foreign. The film got made independently overseas, but without American distribution, it was going to disappear. Then Sister Act happened. Then Disney came knocking. And she made one demand. You want me back in the habit? Sarafina gets a real US theatrical release. Disney agreed. The film wasn't a box office hit, but it played in American theaters. The story reached people who would never have encountered it otherwise. And it happened because Whoopi understood that the moment between a massive hit and the next contract negotiation is the moment you use or you lose. Harvey Keitel's absurd year. Two nun movies, completely opposite vibes. Harvey Keitel spent 1992 making two movies about nuns. They were not remotely similar films. In Sister Act, he played Vince LaRocca, a Reno mobster whose entire problem is that his girlfriend witnessed him commit a murder and then hid in a convent. Keitel plays it with just enough menace to make the threat feel real and just enough cartoonishness to fit inside a Disney comedy. There's a scene where his own henchmen refuse to shoot Dolores because she's dressed like a nun, and Keitel has to stand there explaining that habits don't come with divine protection. A mob boss being undermined by theology. Then there was the other film. That same year, he starred in Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant, which received an NC-17 rating and which Martin Scorsese later called one of the best films of the entire decade. One movie has choir rehearsals and Motown harmonies. The other is a man destroying himself for 96 minutes while Catholic guilt watches from the corner without intervening. What doesn't come up enough? Keitel was cast in Sister Act when Bette Midler was still attached. When Goldberg came on board, the producers offered to buy out his contract and recast the role. He declined. He chose to stay. 2 nun movies, same actor, same year, wildly different spiritual outcomes. The fake witness protection plan and the real reason none of it matters. Let's take a moment to appreciate how thoroughly Sister Act ignores the actual rules of witness protection. In the real program, you receive a new name, a new location, and a carefully constructed ordinary life somewhere unremarkable. The entire premise is invisibility. What you absolutely do not get is a featured solo spot in a choir performing for an increasingly large public audience. The program specifically avoids placing witnesses in tight-knit communities because strangers stand out and community members notice. There is also a documented US government policy prohibiting witnesses from being placed in identities presenting them as members of the clergy, on the grounds that it puts real members of those groups at risk. Dolores Vancardier breaks every single one of these guidelines within her first week. She joins a choir. She transforms it into a public sensation. She performs on television. She's wearing a costume in a city where the mob boss hunting her has people everywhere. The filmmakers knew all of this. Acknowledging it would have killed the movie. There's no comedy in a story where a witness relocates to a Midwestern city, takes a quiet job, and stays invisible for 3 years while a federal case builds. So they ignored reality and asked the audience to accept that the US Marshal Service thought the safest location for a murder witness was a choir that might end up on national television. None of it holds up for a second. None of it matters. Sister Act leaned so hard into its own absurdity that you stop caring about the logic 15 minutes in and just let the harmonies carry you the rest of the way. That's the movie. Impossible, chaotic, slightly miraculous, and somehow exactly what 1992 needed.